according to the schedule, the next speaker is non-chronological. We will invite Professor Cees DE Bont before Lorraine Justice, if you don't mind. Okay, so the most important person will stay at the end. I think we are long-time friend. Thank you, Cees, to endow me with the task of being an associate dean, and then allowed me to experiment with some programs like social design. Thank you.
My great pleasure. Thank you for having me here. It's good to be back. My talk will be, different aspects, but I start with the dream team. This is the dream team. With these three ladies, I could do a lot. I could conquer Hong Kong. I could conquer the world. Without these three, I could not have gone anywhere. I have to do justice to those people who every day, make a difference. Then there's also the network. Victor Lowe is there in the middle. Do you know which place this is? Where are we? This is Chicago. And so every year, we made a trip with the a team that was going to explore a city or a country that would then kind of come to Hong Kong to present themselves at the Business of Design Week. And those were glorious days because you would meet such interesting people, but also, the dynamic amongst the, let's say, the Hong Kong team, which was also amazing, getting to know people much better, having fun together, but learning, having the discussions. I think that was always, super, super important. And that also gave us a chance to meet with, people from all over the world, top designers, top architects, scholars, go to these schools. So that I think was an enormous positive activity that I really enjoyed being part of. There were some challenges, in my days. You could see what was coming up when I came here. There were also kind of different forces working upon me. There were those from the industry that said, Cees, we need people with practical skills, who are ready to go. And then there was the university that at that point already wanted to become more, academic and wanted to do more in research. And sometimes, people from industry say, why do we need all this research, This is just distracting and it's not really, it's not going anywhere, And then people from the university side, they would say, hey, Cees, you're not like just a technical college anymore. We are a university. It's not just practical skills. You really need to build your research. So I had different forces working upon me and trying to, to listen to all of them. But I think what I actually paid most attention to was building the research side, bringing in people with research expertise and knowledge, and that they would over time also inspire people, practitioners, to do things in different ways. So that was kind of the new trajectory. So I had to recruit new people. We had a growing PhD community from, only a few people to, maybe 20, sometimes even 30. So that was really a growing community, and that had to be taken care of very well. Of course, the decisions to have the Jockey Club Innovation Tower were already made before I came. So I'm grateful for the people who kind of took those decisions and helped to bring things together. But then working towards moving into that building, that was also a huge exercise. Not only who's going to sit where, how are we going to use the spaces, what kind of furniture are we going to use. Lots of decisions are to be made at that point in time, which I think we managed to do very well, even though I was not completely happy in the end when every discipline has got its own floor, and I wanted to have the multidisciplinary collaboration. If each and every discipline has got their own floor, that would not work out well. And then the story of Zaha Hadid was that yes, but there's this kind of staircase in the middle, so people would walk up the staircase and then they would see what's happening and they look around. But people, they don't walk up the staircase. They take the lift to go up. And actually, the sides of the staircase also a little bit too high. You barely see, when you're short, you barely see what's happening around you. So the ideas were beautiful, but the implementation actually wasn't the best. So, and then there was one other thing. I also wanted people to collaborate and work together. But we had every people in their own office, and there were very tiny offices. And then what people next did is actually, so I thought, I can walk around and can see who's there. But then they had these tiny kind of windows, but they put, papers in front of it. So you could not see if they were there or they were not there. They were hiding. So it was not really kind of, a space where we could see individuals, where we could see people from different disciplines. So there was a lot of work to be done to make that happen. And there were certain spaces that we actually meant for that, including the think tank on the 13th floor. So ideas were developed, but some of them worked out well, and others, needed, more attention. Then we had the Design Institute for Social Innovation, which also came through Jockey Club money. So they gave a big amount of money for the naming rights of the building, and then they also gave money to run the Jockey Club Design Institute for Social Innovation, which was very new, and we had to kind of think of, who's going to run this, what kind of advisory boards do we need, what kind of projects are we going to take. So this was all kind of fresh and new at the time. Luckily, there were some people who had some ideas, and King was definitely one of them. So, but that was actually, I found super exciting to move in a different space. Also, myself, before I, became a dean in Delft, I was 10 years in Philips, so I was also very much into the product design and making products better and, product innovation and stuff like that. And then moving to the social space, where you have very different problems, very different actors, you need to use very different methods. This was kind of completely new terrain that we had to kind of explore and do good things about. But then it also became obvious that with these different actors, there's also different forces in society, many different views. So there's also complexities that were not always easy to handle. I think we did a lot of good projects, and there were wonderful events that we had, but it also opened my eyes to certain things that I also found very painful. When you look at, elderly people who often are, poor people, and the ways, their living conditions at the time, they were also quite shocking experience to see these kinds of things, and also gave a different need, a different kind of ambition to come in as designers and to help and to alleviate some of these, social issues. When I was here, there was also a new wind blowing that came with doing more research and the like, but also the PolyU started to have the new policy that assistant professors would be here for 6 years, and then after that it's up or out. And that was tough, because then you need to, each and every individual who is, in that role, you need to really, hopefully do justice to, but sometimes when people publish papers, you can say, okay, they have enough papers so they can get promoted. But when people were more artistic or more practice-based, how can you say that what they are doing is good enough to be promoted to associate professorship? So there was, quite a difficult and painful and stressful period for many of us, and we did lose people. We were not able to keep. Some people were very good, but we were not always able to convince, the senior management of the university that they had the kind of characteristics or features that were needed for, the PolyU towards the future. And that was, a bit harsh at times. I must say, the tenure track system, of course, it's everywhere, and all top universities have this. But implementing that, I can tell you, came with some pain. What was a big joy for me, was supervising my own PhD students. And to be fair, after some years, they also become your family members, and they still are. I'm still working with them. They also gave me a chance to come closer to people, often from China as well, from different provinces, telling me about, how they grew up, how they relate to their parents, how they see society, changes in society, why they want to learn, what their motivation is, what kind of things they find interesting. And of course, they all look up to the professor. So this was also having lived and worked in other parts of the world where you're immediately criticized by even the youngest member of staff. Here there's respect and hard work. And together we did move forward in a brilliant manner. And I'm quite proud of my PhD students that I had here. And like I said, I'm still very much in touch with them. I also started something where, it was already mentioned, we wanted to be like, not just training people for the younger, let's say, junior designers or whatever. I also wanted to kind of talk to more influential people and even train them. And for 2 years, I was able to run an executive master of meaningful innovation. And that was actually quite a joy, because some people, they were all at very high levels. Some already, were able to bring their companies to the stock market. Some were like at the, let's say, government council work, KPMG. Benjamin Button was there, the largest seller of buttons in the world. So I had quite a mix of people, but they were all super exciting as to having already influence in society, but then willing to step up in being more meaningful and finding new ways to be innovative. So that actually helped me to get into the discourse at a much higher level than we had ever done before. Unfortunately, when I left, this was also, I think, very much related to my, my personal kind of quest for doing that. So it stopped when I left. I have a few challenges that I see for design education that I had then, but also are very much alive now. There's AI, which is, quite disruptive, and we're still, and I appreciate all the efforts that are gone into, doing things better here. But there's also things that are, in particular, since the pandemic, there's a certain kind of fragility to students. So whereas in the past we could challenge them a little bit more, and if we now challenge them, they trip over, so we have to be very careful and very gentle, to not, cause any pain or anxiety or whatever. So we really have to operate in a different way compared to before. There's also, the design jobs. What are the design jobs of the future? How many people are actually, doing hands-on design? And that continues to be, a changing landscape. For me, there's a difference between innovation, product innovation, service innovation, which is still very much needed. We can make products more safe, we can make them more sustainable, we can make them, maybe we can design them cheaper, we can make sure that they last longer, that they are more ergonomic, that they're more, let's say, that they can be used by everybody. So there's a lot of work that still needs to go on in that space. But now more and more we talk about transformations, and that's also like the work we did in the Design Institute for Social Innovation, where also you talk about transformation, and that's a very different kind of arena to work in. And I think this is still, even though we've done some work, it's still fresh. And there's still a lot of, let's say, learnings to be done for us to really claim expertise also in that space. There's more and more a split between design research and design research, which wasn't really, a field in its own right, but it is now, and those who do the making. And those makers often tend to be more technology-inspired, materials-inspired, and less so people-inspired. And then the design researchers, they can be, of all sorts, but tend to be a little bit more people-inspired or planet-inspired, but they tend to be not so much more unified in one person. So we have different kind of types of people moving forward. And can we keep this together, or should we allow people to become more just design researchers or just makers, or can we somehow keep that bridge alive? There's also something, with the academic research developing further, that one of the areas that has become very important in academic research in design is HCI, human-computer interaction. With all these technologies coming to us, we have to see how we can tame these technologies, how we can bring it to people in ways that they can understand and appreciate these technologies. And there's a lot of academic research in that field. So they're becoming so strong that and I can see this in Singapore where I'm now, they also start to dominate, let's say, the academic thinking in design. And that will also have an impact on the kind of designers and design activities that we will see moving forward. I have to move a little bit faster. There's a few things that, I think in the way forward, we have to accept that people are different. We have to continue to stimulate, the curiosity of people. They should not lock themselves up. They really should be outgoing. They should try to go out of their social groups sometimes. They should talk to other type of people, use different type of media, and not be completely locked into their own kind of social strata, but, break out of that to see what's really happening in the world. Like I said, different platforms for innovation and transformation. And of course, if you look at Asia, one of the big issues is we have an aging population, and that comes with all sorts of positive things, but also a lot of extra work that we need to do, both for the aging people as well as for the caregivers. And this is becoming very, very prominent in China, Japan, Korea, Singapore, most of Asia. We can see this happening. So what we are doing in Singapore, very briefly, we are rehearsing the future. We try to see what is the future by rehearsing it already now. We do the product innovation, but also the transformation, and at the same time we design futures and we have the critical inquiry. And these are the three things that we also want to bring together in one place. We have set up a master program that's actually quite new, also to train design leaders who are aware of the emerging design fields, as well as the academic underpinnings of those, as well as the connection to industry and the wider kind of the broader world, and actually connecting those. That's very much at the heart of industrial design, and that's actually what we pay a lot of attention to in making those connections and see how knowledge and expertise can be leveraged in the real world. One final example on AI. So it's not only talking about AI, it's also about implementing it. Singapore consists of 3 ethnic groups. The biggest group are Chinese people, then you have the Malay people, and you have the Indian people. When we have our National Day, which is the 9th of August, these people, they tend to dress themselves in, Chinese dress, Malay dress, and Indian dress. So where do you get the Singapore feel? So we used AI to kind of analyze what are the visual codes through art, through graphic design, through all kinds of visual elements to find what is the core of the Indian, colors and what are the figurative elements, as well as for the Malay people, as well as for the Chinese. And then we brought those together in one unifying type of design, which is now worn by, and these 3 people are not just everyday people, they are senior ministers of the Singapore government, so they can now also wear something that is cutting across all ethnic backgrounds. And without AI, this would have been a very difficult task. And so this is a very practical implementation, which also has very deep and meaningful elements to it for a country that is 1 year younger than the school. They are 59 years old, and now only after 59 years, there's a dress code. They can present themselves in a way that is across ethnic backgrounds, thanks to AI. So I leave it here. I didn't want to stop without having at least one example with AI, and I'm glad to be back, and I look forward to having more conversations with you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you.